Well, good evening, Star Wars fans. Coming to you live for another exciting edition of Holotheatre. With me tonight, as my co-host, is Mr. Matt Lutz.
Hello.
Matt, doing the unthinkable and beating the three-time world champ this past weekend at Texas Mini Worlds, the online event. And joining us tonight is our special guest host, Justin Miyahiro. Justin played as well. He also did a lot of commentary. So we're going to talk about a lot of Texas Mini Worlds from this past weekend. Deck-wise, the experiences and everything, what people liked, what people didn't like, how people are going to collect their bounties from Robbie. So we'll go. Yeah, so we'll start with Justin. So Justin, you played in the event. How did you do, and what was your overall take on the event?
The event didn't go the way I wanted. I went 1-3, and that last win was by one exactly. So
It's okay. Every force matters.
Yeah.
indeed, as narrow as it gets. But I had actually a very good time. I realized that there was kind of a lot more waiting than I thought there was going to be, mostly because I was used to MPC when we did this last, where you have a single opponent, so you know exactly who you're waiting on. So once they're free, you can kind of just jump into it. You don't have to necessarily wait for them. Whereas for this, like a couple of times, and I was certainly to blame for it because I had the time loss in game one. That went down to less than 90 seconds between both players. But occasionally we'd run into instances where there was one game and the other three were done in the pod, and we can't watch them because we're not allowed to watch the games while we're playing. So I was having to find something else to do to occupy myself for those last couple of minutes. But I think overall it was a great event. I was really happy I played. I was glad that even though I'm kind of part of two teams, none of my teammates were none of my teammates were in my pod. I think there was even only one overlap between my teammates. Like, there was only one pod I think that had members of both of my teams on the same pod.
And which teammate was that? Do you recall?
As I recall, it was Paul Tech Terror and
Okay.
So that's the Team High Ground folks.
Yeah, it was the very first pod, which
The Baroni pod. Yeah.
Yes, I can't remember which of my Bad Batch teammates was on that pod. I'm sorry.
You know what? I will double check that, but I think
it was either. I think it was Sean. I want to say, but I can't recall now.
Sure. Justin, which pod were you in?
I was in pod D, which I after listening to all the commentary about which pods were the worst, or which pods were like the toughest, like the death pods, I was not feeling real enthused. Everyone seemed to think that the pod D was the toughest one. Which,
yeah.
I mean, certainly, I went 1-3, so I felt that, but like the pod certainly didn't seem to have any any easy matchups. I mean, maybe that means I was the easy matchup. Correct? If you can't spot it, then maybe you're the one. I think it was like even the one person whose real name I didn't recognize from the pod. Once I think I got paired against Marone, I was like, oh, Sagnet, I know Sagnet. I was like, oh, okay, well, I actually did know everyone. So.
Well, that's good.
So, what did you end up playing this past weekend? Like, what deck wise did you pull out?
So I played the Watto list that I've been playing in OCS. I went 5-0 with it last month, and it started off pretty well with it this month too. So I
shake my fist at you for playing Watto, by the way.
Oh, a little bit of bad blood between you two with Watto?
I mean, I just hate Watto.
That's fair.
Seems too force on Lightside's first turn before he does anything.
I've been playing that Watto list for a while. It's actually, I think, Dan, you're the one who turned me on to the initial skeleton for the list.
Oops.
And then I just kind of ran with it since then. The other primary deck I had was Legend.
Okay.
Which that seemed to be pretty common. to surprise of nobody, I think Justin Desai was a little further ahead of me in the tech with that one. But,
And I was going to say, like, I noticed that, I mean, you've been playing Legend for a while. I know you played it at Endor, so.
I did, yeah. I played more of the I played more of a weapons heavy build at Endor.
Mhm.
I've come around to up to a Brave Resistance and strike planning as a really good engine for just finding tools out of that deck.
Okay.
Found a lot of success playing a lot less aggressively than I did at Endor. Like basically trying to flip immediately every time at Endor, or as soon as possible. And I've been finding that there's quite a lot of game to that deck, even when you don't do that. Even when you specifically don't do that.
Right. And I played Bastion, who was playing Legend in my first game, and I don't think he flipped until like turn 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Despite a couple of opportunities before that to flip.
Yeah. And then the other two decks that I had, so our team was having discussions about like what decks we wanted to try to run, and ultimately I ended up running a TRM that was inspired heavily by the TRM version that Matt Sperling went with.
Okay.
And the other deck I went with was I believe Kyle Kruger's Alien Deal deck from MPC. Going on the principle of I felt like Watto was furthest behind against TRM, so against somebody who I thought was likely to play TRM, I would play Alien Deal, because that was the deck that I had in my bag that I knew was solid, was best against TRM of what I had access to. Which super backfired and didn't work at all, but that was the idea behind it.
That's fine.
So.
And that was the deck that I won with. I don't know.
Okay.
That's fair.
Do you want to go over some of your matches? So I'm looking at the results thread. Looks like you played Ricard Erickson first.
Yeah. So round 1, I was on Legend against ISB.
Okay.
Because I recall he was playing like a Walker ISB, rather than like the Trooper build or something like that. That was the match that went down to.
That was the time.
Yeah.
It's ISB. It'll do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And man, I mean, so much happened in that game. It's really hard to really remember. I think that I burned some characters early that I didn't really mean to, so that put me behind early on. I think like if the game had played out exactly the same way in like a traditional major, I probably would have just lost the match anyway, because I was behind on force for enough of time that like a 50-minute or hour half or whatever it would be at a real major, that time would have expired anyway. So
Okay.
I was kind of salty to have lost there, because the thing I keep running into that I asked for on the GAMP feature request was to have the clock not count down while no one's taking actions. While the system is processing a destiny draw, I kind of feel like that shouldn't be on anyone's time. That should be blank. Like no one's clock should run. And if that means that our clocks are 35 minutes instead of 45 or whatever, I think that's fine. But to me, I would like my minute and a half to be all my time thinking.
That's fair.
That's kind of I mean, that's a little bit salty.
And I can understand that. Like, say if GEMP crashes, and it's on your action, you get deducted that time. I can fully understand where you're coming from, but.
Well, I mean, the GEMP crash is one thing. I mostly think of it because I think of where the clock works on, not on Magic Arena, but on Magic Online.
Okay.
Because Magic Online has an actual like chess clock the same way that GEMP does, but Magic Online's clock does not tick you down while the game is executing combat damage, and the game is like while you're doing things that don't involve either player's decisions, no one clock counts down.
That's fair.
So I've had games in Magic Online where I realized that I had less than a minute on the clock and won that game because I was just able to just execute clicks really quickly. It's a different mode of thinking, I guess, to realize that GEMP does not really give you that option.
That's fair.
Because there are just certain things that the GEMP is going to take 15 seconds to do that you have no control over. So, so on the one hand, I guess like now knowing, like having more awareness of that is certainly something that I could work on. But I would also like if GEMP just didn't do it. So that'd be cool.
That's fair. Okay,
Right.
so and then on your game 2, you played Darkside against Sam Tashima.
Yes.
It
And
was
Sam,
which Darkside
Sam
deck did
played
you
the.
go with on that one?
So I went with Watto on that one, and Sam played no idea against me,
Right.
and Sam's
And
a
and, and I played Sam's no idea list in my pod.
yeah, like, and Sam, I don't know. I guess I don't know the feeling of the community, but I feel like Sam is really underrated as a
Yes,
player.
yeah, I
He's
agree with you on that.
Completely agree. He's an
Um,
excellent no idea player.
Yeah, I mean, I played him at Continentals, and the only reason that I won that match was because Robs puts lots of cards on the table. Like if the game played out to conclusion, like he was destroying me, and my
Yeah.
TRM just happened to have lost less cards to battle damage that he had put on the table, and I won by like 3 on time or something. But yeah, no, he took me apart handily there, and I played him a couple other times online, and we've had great games. That game was really good. He played it really well. I was realizing that the games that I've won with against no idea with the Watto deck seemed to mostly be due to my opponent making huge mistakes, which Sam didn't do. So,
Yeah, and
so
that's
that
that's
did not go super well.
that's fair.
And then once I was 02, I just decided to play my other 2 decks just to see them, which then led me to run TRM into Adam Fletcher's Bestman CRV deck, which is designed to defeat designed to defeat TRM.
And that was game 4.
That was game 3.
Did you get your Tantive blown up by some laser cannon batteries?
I got my Profundity hit by a laser cannon battery. Yes.
There you go.
I will
Yeah.
say that, and he and I talked about it afterwards in some of the Slack chat, that going with the I must be allowed to speak instead of the insurrection combo actually made that game much closer than it otherwise would have been, because I was able to retrieve the Profundity after it got shot down, and then immediately grab it with Leia with a use pile pull.
Right.
So I was able to get it back immediately, and I had enough of battlegrounds to do damage to him.
Right. I am a huge proponent of farm TRM, so I'm glad that you're playing that a little bit.
I think a lot of people are just because of the use pile pools and everything.
Right.
I mean, it does leave you a little bit open towards an Ellis beat, but I will say this: a lot of people aren't playing Ellis right now. So I mean, based on your meta call, I mean, it could be the correct meta call.
I'm thinking of it.
It's terrible versus Trooper ISB because then they can stick a Garrison and Vader at the farms for 5. 6 with ISB's bonus, but that's kind of neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I think the other nice thing about it too was having access to multiple force pile or use pile pulls rather when you're fighting over that battleground really helps too. It just helps you keep the pressure on and not have to spend the turn drawing up. And having the extra battleground helped a great deal against in that particular matchup. I was able to represent a lot more damage.
Right.
That's fair.
What was the other? I'm just thinking another thing about the farm one. Oh, it was about the Ellis thing. That I think a lot of Darkside decks aren't really playing Ellis. The decks that can take most advantage of an Ellis beat aren't super great in the meta right now. Like Huntdown's pretty much toast right now, and the big main beatdown decks. And then although ISB can set up a big trooper beat, they're always playing a rest order, so they can't run Ellis.
I don't think you're not seeing a lot of neighbors in the meta too because you got ISB plus IE.
And I will say, like with Alice and everything, Court used to play it. They've gone a little bit away from it. I've seen a few CCTs have it in there, but again, it's just.
I've seen it in CCT as well as part of like I've got 4 abusive cards I could cycle and abuse against you, like Voyeur or Imperial Artillery or something along those lines. Dark Time versus TRM.
Yeah. But
I mean, I think just the fact that TRM is likely to run Insurrection and No Idea basically always runs Insurrection just makes Ellis so risky to run.
Yeah, it's a wasted card slot.
So then in your last game, it looks like you played against Pat Johnson.
Yes.
And that's the game. It looks like you won by 1.
Yes, that is the game I played, the Alien Deal deck, which is not, as I've learned, a especially great differential deck.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I think I had like 12, 13 characters on the table at the end of the game. But he was playing Spaceport Speeder's Prophet. So that was exciting, a matchup I've never played before.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was we kind of just spread out, did our own thing, did our own damage. I was able to bust a gift and deal like 10 damage to him a turn for
wow.
I think a turn or a turn or 2 or something like that. And then I counted it out at the end where he was going to do exactly enough damage to kill me over 2 turns. And I needed more than that to kill him. So I was like, well, all right, this is probably over. But we did our damage. And then when he got to his last control phase, I realized that I had Grievous with a stolen lightsaber.
Okay.
And could lose a card from hand to pick up Grievous and the lightsaber and get an extra life force, which left to me at exactly 1 after his control damage.
Oh. See, now that's a good play.
And then I had previously set it up like, well, I guess if I do a battle, I want to do this, and trapped his chariot where he was either going to be battling my stack of like 23 power at the port city, or the port town district, or he was going to be fighting my stack of like 12 power and Zizor alone at the docking bay.
Yeah.
Where he doesn't get a destiny. So he had no option. He took overflow and died from my turn. With my 1 force that I used to initiate the battle. So
there you go.
Nice.
Sometimes it's just about pure power.
Yeah.
I had one of those battles in my matches. So
well, actually, that's actually a good segue. So, Matt, you had the honor of not only getting up early on Sunday, and then you got the luck of having Bastion in the first round. So let's get into this game because, as I said earlier, Matt did the impossible.
Let's talk decks first.
Yes. Yeah.
So I had. I was in Pod A, which is Bastion's pod. I had one teammate, Drew, in there. And I played Sam Tashima's No Idea, kind of on the principle that it's probably the best light side deck. And I also had a hyperdrive deck with the idea that if I get paired up as light side versus Bastion, which we had on either Watto or some sort of SSA maze, he ended up submitting a Bring Him Before Me list. And I was going to trot that thing out and, shoot your shot, punch up, if you will, and hope that I get the best matchup possible against the best currently playing player.
True.
But we also had a Bastion Legend, and I was 100% positive he would play that, and that's what happened. And the CCT list that I had, I submitted 2 CCT lists. One designed to kill Legend or kill No Idea. I ran into both.
Okay.
And the other designed to kill TRM. In the case we ran into it. The Legend game, other than missing the audience chamber pull the first turn, I felt like I had like every answer that I needed. Bastion put out Jakku with Tantive and Poe there. I had both of my get combos in hand, and so then I dropped Ellis, Woof, I think Ponda Baba, Proxima, Guri Stinger on it. And then he drew a 6 for Destiny, which was -1 from Woof. And then I had a Dark Time in hand. So now he's got 4 attrition. My ships are immune less than 5. So I lose nothing. I think he peeled during that. And that's kind of when, I was now going to be draining for 3 in space for the rest of the game. And then we just fought over the audience chamber the entire time. And that's put down General Leia, and then Padme. We had a couple of fights there. I was really lucky that one time I had Jabba non-V there, so I had my forfeit boosts. So I had 16 attrition and could forfeit exactly 3 of my 6 guys there. And then we kind of a drain 2, retrieve 1, drain 3, kind of for the rest of the game. Dan, I saw your commentary when you came in, when we were fighting over at the Takadana sites and versus Chewy when he was alone. It was just like I felt like I had every card I needed when I needed it. And thankfully, he wasn't playing like a Legend Blasters deck. He had sort of a battle over the combo. And so I never ran into like Layer's Blaster Rifle or any of those issues.
Okay.
And like I was shaking when I was done with that game. Like, oh my gosh, I just beat Bastion by 28.
Yeah.
This is the best game of Star Wars I've ever had in my life.
You know, yeah. First of all, beating someone by 28 is impressive. Beating Bastion by 28. Oof. Yeah. It was.
I want to thank Justin, who's on the call, because in building that list, I looked at his deck list report that he submitted to Tom Haid. I looked at Chris Kelly's MPC list. And then I also, Taco Bill was also instrumental in throwing some ideas together, as well as Drew, who was also in my team, especially for the get combos, because when we had that battle versus the Tantive, I expected Finn to come down. Finn did come down. Finn got bounced back to the hand, and we never saw him again.
And let me ask you, how did you bounce Finn? Was it you canceled the react?
He canceled the react with the
Okay, that's
so
right.
Finn never hits the table. So he goes back to hand. And then that same turn, I think Bastion put down like BB-8, Jedi Ahsoka, Rey at the carbonate chamber. I just left him alone the entire game because I didn't need to go there. We just fought over the audience chamber for the rest of the game.
And it just looked like, I did commentary for that game, and it was extremely efficient. It was an extremely clean game by you and Bastion. Bastion didn't look like he made a lot of mistakes.
No, he was great. We got to a point where like I got a verify under his deck. It was all 4s and 5s, all red cards, like very typical because he had 3PO out. He lost Padme one time because Boa's gun hit her, and so she went lost. And he just he retrieved her with Walkling and brought her back, and so we kind of had that fight, a couple of times. He had like an EPP Obi that he picked up with a Jedi Lev. Same thing I think with a EPP Qui-Gon. We never saw them as well. So I never saw the EPPs come down into the audience chamber. But I mean, it was a great game. Bastion was an excellent opponent. And here I am sitting 1-0, plus 28 over Bastion.
So then in game 2, you actually got to play your teammate Drew.
I got to play Drew.
So
so I knew. One of the reasons why I picked No Idea, when I saw Drew in there, I thought, you know what, he's a great court player. He's probably going to play some sort of court. No Idea matches up with it really, really well. And him and I were chatting the night before, and I was talking about some crazy anti-ISB TRM deck. And so, he had the option. If you look at the lists that he submitted, I was actually formatting the lists for Agglets for publication on the website, which I've done for Majors for a couple of years now. We actually need a couple of folks to do that. So if anyone wants to help with that, I can A, show you, and B, put you in contact with, of course, Agglets on Slack, and we can get those sorted out. But he put together kind of a standard port list, and then an anti-TRM port list.
Okay.
And he played the anti-TRM port list, which didn't have the Kree Virtual in it. But the saving grace in that one was he ran the Eric White Arctic concentration. And so
yeah.
Yes. And I ran into I worked into broken cons in both of my light side games. So while he didn't have the Kree out, I also wasn't able to retrieve during battles because I was running at force.
Yeah.
So he was using broken cons there. And I ended up winning by +5 after being able to take over Scarif and now Hutta. I had more ships than he was. I had evac on the table. Yada yada yada. I never went to Tatooine, so I got pinged there every time.
Yeah.
Um,
And I was
but
going to say, because getting rid of Quart's space fleet is impressive, just because
Yeah.
of how deep it can go.
right, yeah, and as we saw in the first game versus Bastion, you just drop a pile of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden Guri Snare limits you to 1. You're gonna be less than 5. You got Woof down, and you got Lightside's got problems.
Yeah.
And the issue the Court versus No Idea games. I mean, that's a battle of inches. It's going to be +5 one way or the other.
Mhm.
Absolutely huge beatdown. And so that's always a kind of a grind.
It's interesting to me how that's kind of developed over the course of like the past couple of months because the conventional wisdom, at least that I was led to understand, was that Court was very good against the whole meta except TRM,
Mm-hmm.
and now it seems that No Idea has been able to adapt enough that they've brought it to 50-50, or maybe it sounds like from what you're saying that you actually like No Idea against Court.
Yeah, no, I like No Idea against Court. I think Court. I think from a dark side perspective, Court can beat everything in the meta. I think it is got a very fair match against TRM, especially because Court is extremely good at punishing light side mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't leave enough force to fire weapons, things along those lines. It can really easily stack up a lot of power, a lot of battle destinies. And it can really mess with a light side's game. I was watching one of the other games outside my pod after I was done, and it was like a Jedi Business TRM versus Court, and all of a sudden, TRM took over the audience chamber, but didn't leave enough force, like left with 1. And so then, Court drops a whole pile of guys, it drops Rio, it battles, and all of a sudden, like, really bad things happen.
Yeah.
And it's functionally game over from there.
Yeah, and Court has that ability to just punish people for their mistakes, as you said. So, on to Game 3. Game 3, you actually get to play Matt Carulli. So it was the Battle of Mats.
I was so excited to play Matt Carulli.
Yeah.
Because I put a bounty out, or a kind of a comment in the bounty thread, and I said, whoever plays better between Matt or Justin Carulli. And I could meet Matt for the first time at Continentals last year. I think he's a great deck builder. I think he's got really super off meta ideas. I played his Destroyer droid deck that he played at Worlds a bunch after that last year. I played his Blaster Diplo deck for a little while after he played that at Worlds last year. And he was kind of the wild card in our pod. Like I wrote down, who do I expect? What do I expect people to play?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I said I wrote down I expect that to play Diplo in some form. And for Darkside, I have absolutely no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up, if you look at his deck lists,
I believe he
Diplo
played
as
it.
well. He ended up playing really close to his World's 2019 Diplo list.
Mm-hmm.
But I got him as Darkside, and he played this like super interesting CCT deck that I think you commentated first round. And so it had like Broken Concentration and Dr. E.
Yeah.
And Matt's favorite card is Stun Blaster, and so he had Dodo cast the Stun Blaster.
Yep.
Yeah. My card of the week in that deck, which we'll talk about later. And I made one mistake in that deck in that game because the card is a droid that prevents spies from applying their ability toward drawing Battle Destiny. And all my characters on the ground were spies, and I thought, okay, the only characters I have in this deck, like either in my hand or in the space right now, that could draw Battle Destiny in these situations, was Hera, because she would add, or Leia Organa, because she draws it from able to otherwise.
True.
And so we had a whole pile of dudes at the data vault, and I had Leia in my hand. I thought, okay, how am I going to work this? But I ended up pulling her to the beach, and then not moving her over. We ended up having this big battle, which is, I think, when Dan came back in from commentating.
Yep.
But I had a Keep Your Eyes Open that I played and then immediately retrieved with 10 men. I got to play that twice. And the battle that Dan came in on, I won on just pure power because I had a whole pile of dudes. I had Chad Hilsey. And so the fact that I had Saw there versus like 6 guys didn't matter. He had to lose a dude or two just because of the power differential.
Yeah. It's funny. I was going to say, because it was funny before this game, you're sitting tied, like completely tied with him for first place. You're both 4-0, and you both have 33 for differential.
Right. Yep.
2-0.
Yeah, both 2-0.
Yeah.
And then when they came by 19, because I was able to get a projection on the audience chamber, it menace fades out to cancel the Jabba's or the Despair virtual bonus. He's not doing like any damage to me right now.
Yeah.
And it just turned into like some beatdowns on Scarabs.
So, and at this point, I mean, yeah, you ended up beating him by 19. So, after game 3, you're 3-0, and your differential is what, 52, and you get matched up against Adam Trunzo, who's also 3-0. Now his differential was 20, so you're sitting at a pretty good position just based on that. I mean, 3 and 4 were Matt.
I was like shaking after this game again because I thought, oh, okay, you know what? I'm gonna play Trunzo. He's gonna play No Idea, and CCT can beat No Idea.
Yes. Yeah.
So this game was a blowout from the beginning.
So yeah, let's talk about this game because I don't remember watching this game. I think I had to go by then.
Joe Wilson came in about halfway through. But what happened was I hit my AC pole the first turn, and he missed the beach and put out Rogue One with Luke Skywalker virtual on it, and I had basically a god hand of Ellis, Dengar, and Ship, my system, Guri, and Force Push.
Oh.
So what ended up happening was
I could just see this now.
I dropped Ellis, no barrier, got Woof, no barrier, dropped Dengar. I had Force Push because I was looking for Decree. That's why I had Force Push in it to find Decree easier. But I Force Pushed for Tom Haid Thrawn. And dropped him on there on the event that somehow he draws his double agent for Destiny. Because that would, even with Woof, would crack my immunity 5.
Yes.
Battle, I drew, I think I drew a 5 for Destiny, and he drew Wedge Squadron Leader, which is +/-1.
So it's a.
So there goes Luke, there goes the ship, and he took 2 overflow on his first turn, on my second turn. He comes down the next turn, and then I draw up and I find Proxima.
Okay.
That's my bottom card on my force pile. So then I activate one with the console chamber. The next turn he drops, and he started Guts instead of Walkling. And so he drops Cantive, Solo, and Bright Hope. And so my next turn, I drop Proxima, I find Darrow in my reserve and Iggy, so I get those guys out. I battle into them, and then he has 11 battle damage. Again, draws low for Destiny, and I draw high. So there goes Solo, and then he drops Solo and peels 4. And then the turn after that, he puts Han Chewie Falcon out, and I'm but doesn't battle. I think he also got Jin that turn, and Probot was in my force pile.
Okay.
And so my next turn, I get Ponda Baba virtual with Proxima. I get I get Arca V with Proxima. I get Ponda Baba with Iggy. And so then I drop Probot, I drop Arca, and then I drop Ponda Baba on the system. So I'm able to break Jin's cover. I battle into his space, which blows it all out. I never lost a character in space that game. And all of a sudden I'm in a situation where I'm retrieving 2 per turn. One from the objective, one from Arca. I've got his lone Jin sitting there by her lonesome, and during battle he pulled Hugix out of his deck, and he was kind of off to the races from there. I think where Joe came in, he had a couple of guys at the carbonite chamber, and I was able to drop Hondo and Sin and Thano there, and then battle into that. And it ended up being a force win +26.
Yeah. So
I mean, it was just space was controlled. He got some guys down at the beach. then my last turn, I was able to find U3PO. I had put on HUD Influence, take care of the projection at the audience chamber. And, I mean, it was basically for 4 games in a row. I thought I was able to have the answers when I need where I needed them, when I needed them. Like Cobot versus Jin right away.
Yeah.
And that's what this game comes down to. I mean, you ended up going 4-0 with a differential of 78. That's really good.
Yeah.
I am amazed that it happened. I almost couldn't believe it Sunday morning. You know, I sent a message to the team like, you know, thank you Sam, thank you Drew, thank you Bill, thank you Greg, and everyone else.
So you're on Bill's team, huh?
I am on Bill's team.
Oh, wonderful. We'll talk. We'll talk. We're not going to talk about that tonight, but
his team has a few more credentials than mine does. So
yeah.
But
you got Squirreling, so you got that going there.
I do. I was gonna say, I mean, one of the things that I guess like the contrast between like CCT and Court, because I mean CCT's Scum and Court are fairly similar decks, right? A lot of the same cards, but from the games that you just described there, like the biggest difference is like if your opponent can't attack the audience chamber very early against CCT, it can spiral out of control really fast, as your game showed.
Yep.
And I think it's actually much worse if you can't crack the audience chamber against CCT than it is against Court.
Oh, I completely agree, because they're just going to retrieve 2 every turn, one every turn, and they're going to dig with Iggy.
Yeah. And IG-88 is like the big reason why, like I had games where I played that CCT deck that I read the deck list report about, that my opponent would just comment just like, you had the answer every turn. I'm like, I was searching with Iggy every turn for 7 turns. Like of course I have the right answer.
Yeah. No, and I like it a lot because it's not like you have to draw up. You can leave a pile of force for a beatdown. I think my podcast co-host Kendall had a comment in Slack that I think is really nice, where he says CCT to Court is like Spanish to Portuguese. They're similar enough, but they're completely different.
Very true.
And they're very different animals.
Yeah, CCT more has like I'm going to control and dictate how you. It's going to kind of dictate how your opponent works, whereas Court is the more I'm going to punish you for any mistakes you make, and I'm going to try and overpower you as much as you can. Because I noticed
and I think the Despair Virtual has done a lot for that, because you're power plus 3 every battle, and so it's effectively like having another like minor character there for forfeit. Yeah. As long as you. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, which helps make up for, because I remember one of the big things that I came away with from that decklist report was that Court's big advantage that I didn't see a lot of good ways for CCT to make up was the forfeit bonus for bounty hunters. But the Despair actually makes that up a fair bit. And the card that I hadn't really considered, but I've been playing with a lot more and like it a lot, is the Java Non-B, which does actually have actually half the forfeit. That's 1 forfeit, but I mean.
It's 1 forfeit to every alien, and I want to give credit there to Lenny Rubin, because he's the guy who kind of showed me that those playtesting games. And Lenny, of course, Boba's Blaster Rifle Virtual is his card.
Yeah, which is kind of nice.
CCT, you gotta raise a glass to Lenny there.
Yeah.
CCT Scum certainly doesn't exist without that card, I don't think.
Oh no, it does not.
It used to. It's kind of funny because people. The CCT version, or a Scum with the IG-88, was an old deck that I want to say first gained popularity at a Yevon 4 regional, and it's been a popular deck. But this version of it, I without that Boba Fett gun.
It's a lot more powerful now. I mean, when I started back in the game in October of 2017, Gemp Tom was playing his CCT mains. The 12 card version with Iggy. And he would just destroy you because, just like Justin, what you said, he had every answer every turn.
Yeah.
He's digging with Iggy, and he doesn't have to draw up to find him.
That was actually the deck that I took to MPC, which was my first live major, and got close. I made Joe Olsen sweat in our match because I hit.
It's not hard to
Jedi
make Joe
Knight.
sweat.
Well, I hit Luke Jedi Knight with a lightsaber and played all too easy.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
And then Joe had to draw like 18 cards in order to be able to beat down, which he did eventually do, to his credit, of course.
Yeah.
But
Right.
closer than I thought I would get to beating the number 1 seed at my first major. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So like once my pod was done, Dan, I was tuned up. I popped into the stream every once in a while, but I felt like just like completely disconnected from like what was going on and who played what in what pods. It was just weird.
yeah.
Because like I haven't played in a live major, but like the ability to just like chit chat with people between games and talk about stuff, like that felt really missing.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And actually, I felt the same way because I had originally volunteered to stream some of the evening matches after my pod was done, and I just checked into the streaming group. I'm like, if you really need me to cover a match, I will, but otherwise I'm checking out so I can stream at 7 in the morning for myself the following day. So.
Yeah, I will say this, like, props to you, Matt, for playing at 6 a.m. on Sunday.
Five for me. I'm Central Time.
Oh, you're Central? Okay, I'm sorry.
So, yeah, but I'm normally up around that time, and I picked that time. I picked that time slot. I've got 3 kids under the age of 10.
Okay.
The idea was that this is going to take me like 6 hours of time.
Yeah.
And so the more games I can get in when everyone's still sleeping, the better. And like my wife, who is the most wonderful person in the world, when I initially signed up for that time slot, like all my kids were sleeping like till 7 a.m. And then all of a sudden they bumped back to 6 for some stupid reason. And then thankfully that day they all slept till like 6:30. And like one of the tenets of my marriage is I'm the morning person, my wife is not. And so it's a very nice trade-off.
Yeah. So she came in and substituted for you?
Yeah, so like I set out cereal for the older 2 so they could get up and take care of that themselves, and hopefully the baby would sleep as long as he would possible. But they all like got to like 6:30. So by the time like my game with Bastion was done, I got one game in before everyone kind of stomped around.
Good.
Yeah.
And of course, like it's a good thing that was the game that you played Bastion.
Right.
And what was nice was, and it's kind of nice because Bastion was able to overcome that initial beatdown by 28, and he made it in. So
Right.
props on Bastion for coming back and taking over that number 2 seed to get into the top 16.
Right. You want to talk about who's going on the match play, Dan?
Yeah, so at this point we have 16 people who are in the match play. So basically you have a person who has won their pod and one individual who came in second. So there's now So again, 16 people who are going to come up and play in the first round. We've already had one game between Mr. MHT and Bastion. So they have already played their first game. Actually, Joe Olsen went on and did a review of it with MHT about 2 hours ago. So I believe that's on Joe's channel. So if you're looking to watch that, it's over on Rebel Spy or twitch.com/Rebel Spy. So that's a good one. But yeah, so far we have so David Woods versus Matt. So how do you feel about that? You're going to be picking both sides. Do you want to tell how you?
I'm the number 1 seed going into match play, which is like just scares the hell out of me. I feel good. He and I have actually been exchanging emails today, trying to sort out the schedules. It sounds like he's got a young kid who's got to get to bed. So we're probably gonna, I think, get both games in this weekend, but play one game at a time.
Yeah, and I think
I'm a time zone behind him, and he needs some sleep, and so do I.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are doing is playing their one game at a time. We have a 2 week. The players have a 2 week window. So have you?
And that's great. That's great.
So have you decided on your decks, or are you talking to your team, or?
I have decided on one of my decks. I'm working on something else I decided on one deck,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm working on what the second one is going to be.
Yeah. So we had a question in the chat. So preparing for a top 16 event, do you study what the opponent played for their decks, or are you just throwing all that information out, or how it's going to make your decision?
So I will. I have done what I can to find out what my opponent has played in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and I would expect him to do the same for me. It's like when you're, kind of a mid-level professional, you expect if you're applying for a job, you expect that the potential employer will do as much research on you as you're doing on them.
Exactly.
The interesting thing is, I played in my first majors this year. I played in the NPC online,
Mm-hmm.
and now I've played in this. I have found that it's extremely stressful, just make match play in general,
Mm-hmm.
just because you're trying to tech for one opponent, and we're allowed to change decks, of course, between opponents. And so I can look at my opponent's old lists and try to figure out, okay, here's what he's played in the past, here's what he knows,
Mm-hmm.
here's what I can expect. Do I want to tech for that? Or do I think that he's going to realize that I'm going to do that, and he's going to play something completely different and try to spook me?
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of the stressful part about it.
Yeah.
I remember feeling the same way when trying to tech for Eric Hunter as a 15 seed in my bracket for the NPC.
Mm-hmm.
And that, it's just stressful.
Yeah. I will say this for next year's NPC, if you decide to play on it, I don't think you're going to be a 15 seed.
I was just thinking that too.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence. I am looking forward to the day that I get to play Star Wars in person with someone other than my 8-year-old.
I think at this point everybody is. So.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So. Yeah, and so first of all, we have it in the comment in the chat that you're gonna bust out a sweet Sepoid deck.
I followed that discussion on Slack today for just a little bit while I was, taking breaks from work. I will firmly deny that I will play a Sepoid. Whatever.
I mean, I wouldn't even be necessarily confident that Gemp will handle that interaction correctly, given how many questions we had about it. So,
yeah.
Even if you liked it, I would say maybe don't. So.
Yeah, no.
So, and then Ryan Saracen has said this is the classic Princess Bride dilemma. It really is. Yeah. When you get down to match play, it really is. You can literally overthink yourself to the point where you're going crazy.
Yeah. Right. Well, and one of the things that came up in our team discussions also that Matt Sperling brought to our discussion was the idea that, well, if you are expecting that you might be able to advance,
mm-hmm.
it might be good to bring your A deck and a C deck that matches up well against your A deck's bad matchup, as opposed to your A and B decks to the pod portion, so that you don't expose the two best decks that you have before you get to the top 16.
That's true.
Which super didn't work out for me, but is something that is another
mm-hmm.
level of consideration. That since you get to change decks between, like, do you play the deck that you are strongest with, or the deck that you think matches up best against what your opponent's likely to play, and there's a lot of decision making that goes into
exactly
those choices. So
and I would echo that. Like, one thing I think that I saw Drew or Coffee Pass post on the forums was and part of our team discussion was, for each side, pick a deck that you're comfortable with. It's kind of your so-called A deck, and then pick a deck that, if you get paired up with the best player in your pod, tech for that person
mm-hmm.
and play that deck.
Yeah.
So that's why, for example, I had a hyperdrive deck in the event that I, got paired up with Bastion. Maybe he plays Watto.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that. I think it would be crazy for someone to play Watto against me as Lightside in a format like this.
Yeah. Certainly, if I was in your pod, I would have had some sort of dark side deck that I thought was good against hyperdrive as my non-Watto deck.
Right. So. Yeah. I think you'd be crazy to do that.
Yeah. And it's funny because I want to say Bastion did end up playing Watto is one of his 2 decks.
Yeah, he played Watto and Bring Him Before Me.
Yeah, that's right.
And
So-
I mean, I imagine if I got paired up against him, he would have played Bring Him Before Me. I have played against that deck or a version of it,
Mm-hmm.
and just he slaughtered by TRM. So
I mean, I think the other wrinkle to that too is that one of the things that sets the top players out, sets the top players apart from the rest of us, and particularly all the number 1 seeds, I think, in this tournament, is that I think for a lot of them it's very difficult to actually put them on a deck.
agreed.
Yeah.
Like there are metagame exceptions potentially, but
I was going to say...
like, oh, this is clearly the top, like the tier half, like the tier 0.5 deck. I have to expect that they maybe will play that, but I think in a more general sense, like for instance, in my thought, Joe Olsen was the number 1 seed. I always seem to be up against Joe Olsen, and I didn't feel like I could tech for him.
Yeah.
Because I know Joe can play a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I've seen him play a lot of different things. I can't be spending my effort trying to figure out what tech deck is going to be able to beat him when I got to get past the other 6 people too. So
Yeah.
so I mean, the decision can go a lot of different ways, and in the top 16 it's a very different discussion because you know you're up against that one person. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So on your side of the top 16, it's also J.C. Smith versus Greg Shaw. Greg, one of your teammates. Joe Olsen versus Steve Baroni. Steve, who actually has won the last 2 Texas Mini World events. He won back-to-back in 2016 and 2017. So
There you go.
and then also you have Bill Kafer versus some unknown. Then you've got Jared Konsker versus Justin Desai. Bastian Winkelhaus versus MHT, Matt Harrison trainer. Again, they played game 1 already. I believe MHT won that game, so I believe, and then they're going to be playing on Friday. Brad Kipple versus Edward Chen, and then the last game is Eric. I'm not going to pronounce your last name. There's no way in Spixma, yeah, versus Mike Kessling. So it's a good top 16. You know, I like I mean, I think there's no bad matchups here. I think there's no really easy outs. Like, I feel bad for Joe playing Baroni right off the bat because that's going to be interesting. It's funny because I want to say Jared Konsker and Desai, they played recently at the NPC, so it's a little bit of a rematch there. And then, yeah, I mean, you've got, like I said, you guys have, what, 3 members of your team in the top 16, so that's pretty good.
We got 4.
Oh, 4.
We had 4 folks win their pods, and 3 of them went
Kessling.
4-0.
Kessling is the other one?
Yes.
Because your team is the new allies, or better known as Mike Kessling's drinking buddies.
Yes.
So, yeah, you know, I'm excited to see what happens. I know that Bill Kafer guy is going to be playing this Sunday and possibly next Tuesday. So I think we're going to get that game on Dan Plays for some silly reason.
I think he'll be fine.
No.
I do think it's funny that I'm the guest and you 2 guys are the ones who are playing in the top 16. So.
Well, I mean, you did a lot of the streaming, so.
I originally volunteered to co-host this evening. So my appearance this evening was pre-scheduled. It just happens to be very coincidental with, the luck of the draw, if you will, from this weekend.
Yeah, and we'll have more coverage for the Texas Mini Worlds next week. I think Chris Kelly is going to be the co-host. We don't have a set guest. It's going to be one of the people who progresses on to the top 8. So I'd like to get on it. Hopefully we're going to get Steve Baroni on, or if he progresses. I know he's agreed to coming on, so B. Fred's going to come on at some point whenever he gets a Wednesday off. So we've got a lot of guests lined up for everybody. But we'll see what happens with the Texas Mini World events and everything, so stay tuned to that. So I think at this time, though, we're going to take a break from talking about Texas Mini Worlds and venture on into Swing and a Miss, It's a Hit. Yeah, Chris, you signed up, so you don't back out now. Okay, so let's talk about Swing of the Mist. For the first one we got tonight, it's going to be about Texas Mini Worlds, but
Go for it.
I don't
uh,
know why you thought we were going to take a break from talking about this tournament, but all right.
I mean, this is what we have to talk about. But so at least four of the lower seeds, so the people who've not won the pods, will progress out of the top 16 and to the top 18. So that would be David Woods, J.C. Smith, Joe Olson, myself, Jared Konsker, just Bastian, Brad Kipple, and Eric. I'm not going to say your name.
It's segment. So
Eric.
at least 3 seeds.
At least four.
You said at least 4.
We're going to go with four. I'm going to up it to four.
Oh, that's a miss. I think there's a solid 3 there that I think will advance. I think you got. I think Jared could advance. Bastion's could advance. Although he did. And spoiler alert: he did lose his game this morning
Yes.
versus MHD. I think he had one. I was keeping track here as you listen to this off. I think we'll have 3. Don't think we'll have 4.
Yeah, I would also say it's a miss for kind of the same reason. I think Jared's a decent bet. Joe is a decent bet. Bastion I can't bet against. Although I mean right now it's a little skewed because he's down 1, but at least 4. I mean I could even see one of the other another one as the 4th, but getting to 5, which we need to get to at least 4.
No,
That's gonna
4.
Be tougher.
4 or more.
Oh, okay. You said
4
at least
more.
4. I still think I'm gonna call it a miss. And I
Mhm.
hope they prove me wrong. So
Well, I'm going to say this. Like, David Woods, Beefright has said many times that he's one of the best players who he's scared of. So I'm not saying this is bad against you, Matt. I mean, I know you played really well, but I'm just going down the list. I do kind of like Greg over JC. I'm not going to go deeper into that. I think Greg is playing really well. I saw some of his games. He played really clean. Joe and Steve, I think, can go either way. It's going to come down to what either is thinking the either is going to be playing. Myself and Bill, I'm going to say this. I'm not too confident myself. I'm just happy to make it this far. But
just happy to be invited.
I'm going to say this. Crazier things have happened. I did beat Fred, so...
See, when we're in this discussion, it reminds me of I'm a lawyer. That's my gig. There's a kind of a joke about when you get to law school, it's all like the A students, all the gunners, all the people who they always raise their hand to every question. And I've had discussions with people who want to go to law school. It's like, you think you're good now, you get to law school, and you are now average. Get used to it.
Yeah.
And I think Gemp has definitely raised the level of play.
Oh, agreed. Agreed. I'm not saying it hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a weak person in this 16-person field.
Yeah.
Hi.
I mean, I think the NPC is a great example. I mean, we look at the bracket, right? There was a distinct possibility that none of the number 1 seeds made it to the top 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? There were more weren't there more 6 seeds than 2 seeds than 3 that made it through?
But yeah, I mean, looking at, like I said, the rest of the bracket, Brad and Ed, again, I'm not really familiar with them. I know they're both Gemp Warriors. So, I mean, Ed just did top his bracket, or his pod, so that's good. Kessling and Eric, again, I can think that game could go either way. Kessling, when he's on his game, he's a really good player. He's just easily to put on tilt, too, so...
I will say this for Brad. Brad's the one who I had eyes on last month because I went 9-3 in the OCS and was holding out hope that would be good enough in a month where the top players didn't do super great, and Brad made his 10-2 that he needed to.
Yeah. Okay. So he's in the OCS. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think again, like I said, I think Brad and Ed could go either way. Eric and Mike could go either way. Bastion right now, as we said, there's a reason he plays. I mean, he's one of the best players ever. So, but yeah, I think it could happen. I think we could see 4. I wouldn't be surprised.
So it's a hit for you, Dan.
I'm going to say it's a hit.
You know, I appreciate your optimism.
You know what? I'm going to say this. At least from my perspective, I'm in the top 16. I got to at least try. Like I said, I could get a good hand and get lucky against Bill, and Bill could just get an unlucky day. I mean, I could ship Bill like a plethora, a case or a pallet of beer the night before and be like, "Here you go, Bill. Have fun."
I mean, I do think that because of the high skill the high skill floor in this top 16, I think there's a lot of this that may come down to matchups. Like there's a lot of you picked court and teched it for the wrong thing or something. Like I think there's a potential for some things like that to happen that could swing.
I agree.
Swing matchups and create upsets.
Yeah. And that was the weird thing about like now we're in match play. You pick one deck per side per opponent.
Mm-hmm.
In the pod play, I mean, I thought it was a very fresh format.
Yeah, I liked it.
Because you get 2 decks. You're gonna play 4 people.
Yeah.
You know, I know there's been some commentary on the forum about differential and what do you think about the issues related to 2 decks. I thought it was very fresh. I think it's a great like once per year type of idea.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, I mean, I think I made a mistake going in my game 3 against Ed. I switched from No Idea to Throne Room. He was playing Hunt Down, so I think that was a mistake in my part. But again, when you're have those little, again, it's the mind games. Like, do you want to switch? And he's like, well, am I feeling good with this deck? Do I know this deck? I don't know what my opponent's playing, but this deck I feel confident with. So there's a lot to factor in there.
Right. Yeah, and it's like, it's like if you bring one deck to a major and you lose a game because of a bad matchup, it's like it's a real feel bad moment because that's the only deck you've got. But if you lose a game in pod play, where because of the matchup, it's partly on you because you picked the deck of 2 you had available to you.
So, talking about the feedback thread a little bit, because I think I'm the only one so far who has said they didn't like the 2 deck format. I actually kind of I kind of don't like it partly for the reason that you're suggesting, is that I think the one drawback to it is that it creates a lot of places for drain of mental energy.
Oh, I agree.
In places that I honestly don't really think there's a lot of reward for. Like what you're talking about there, where it's partly on you. It's like, is it though? Because you didn't know what your opponent was going to pick, so your decision is mostly made in the dark. And although there's things you can look at, their tendencies and what you think they're going to do. Ultimately, while that decision is a decision, it's not one that, like, I don't think your odds are going to be that much worse if you flip the coin, assuming your 2 decks are relatively equal. And so because of that, I think there's a lot of energy that got spent on the per matchup deck choices. Like choosing which 2 decks to bring, I think is worthy of the effort. But once you're actually in the games, or once you're actually are matched up and are making your decision for that round, unless it is I planned for Bastion, so I'm going to bring my Bastion deck.
Yes.
I think much beyond that. I think there's a degree to which it's wasted energy.
Yeah,
and Star Wars is a hard game. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think before the event, I made a spreadsheet of here's all the people in my pod. Here's what I think they could play, and so you put the energy into the preparation, so that when it's come decision time on what deck you're going to load versus an opponent, you've already made that choice and you made it 3 days ago.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I approach that.
Sure. Well, but that's why I say in a regular major, if I took court to Endor, for instance, and then I run up against TRM and lose to a bad matchup, it's like, well, yeah, that sucks, but that's also the gambit that I was taking when I chose this deck for this major.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
If I didn't want to lose to TRM, I should have played a different deck, or made different tech decisions or whatever. But I think that kind of relieves the stress for that round. Is my thought. So.
No, I get it completely.
Okay. So moving on to our next question. So now that we're in the top 16, CCT is going to be the most played dark deck.
Miss. I think it got enough exposure during the initial round. People are going to see its kind of lockout type potential with the ease of grabbing Arca V, Broken Concentration, Arctic.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not going to see as much play. I think, I know one deck building philosophy deck picking philosophy for this event was play your best deck, and then have a lockout type deck in case you need to win game 3 or game 4 or whatever by a very large differential. And so I think people are going to realize that, they're going to tech for it, and it's going to see less popularity in match play.
I actually, now that you've made that point, because I was going to also say it's a miss, but I think now that you've made that point, I'm actually leaning towards it's a hit. And the reason is actually the same reason that you just made there, is that because it's a deck that has a lot of lockout potential and has the ability to run up the diff, I think it's a deck that you can bring as your dark side deck if you're the higher seed and get to choose first.
That's a good point.
And choose to start light, and then you get to see based on that. Oh, do I need to win by? Yeah. Do I need to win game 2 by 25? Okay, well that changes how I have to play the CCG. Or did I win game 1 and just have to not lose by 15?
Mm-hmm.
That then I can play CCT that way, because CCT gives you a lot of flexibility in that regard. So I actually think that there's a possibility that CCT could go up because it's differential. Now the reason I was gonna say it's a miss is I think ISP is strong enough and a solid enough deck at running up diff because of all the potential retrieval that it could be more prevalent. But I mean, it was already pretty prevalent in the product field. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of the top dog in the dark side meta, anyways.
Yeah, and
so
I was going to say,
it depends on what you mean by more play. Like if you think we're going to see more CCTs than we did in pod
no, I was going to say out of the 16 decks we're going to see for dark side, the most are going to be 16. Or out of these next 16 decks, you're going to see a majority of them being CCT.
A majority of them.
Or a majority, so at least
or
9.
At least
like
9.
More CCTs than any other deck.
Like a plurality.
Yes.
I mean, regardless of which question it is, I think it's a miss. I think you're not going to see 9.
So,
Being the most.
so Matt,
I would go with it. I would go with it's a hit for more CCTs than other decks, but a miss for 9 or more.
So Matt, your podcasting partner says 12 card ASM.
That sounds miserable. Like,
why would you just play 12 card Death Star? Like,
yeah. You know what? I think it's going to be a miss only because ISB is a really, really good deck. ISB has a lot of lockout potential in a lot of ways. Don't get me wrong, ISB now has progressed from the more I'm going to control to kind of like a beatdown type of a deck. But I think when you looking on some of the opponents, you can still go with the more control lockout type of an ISB. Like look at the old version that Steve Baroni would run that ran like a lot of like the Image of the Dark Lord plus Dark Waters plus like the droid plus like everything that limits your opponent's drains, and then you're draining up in space for 2 to 4 every turn.
I mean, there's also the possibility that ISB. I know there was a build floating around. I think right after NPC or something that was running a bunch of Emperors to get verified by pulling Force Lightning and putting back the drop. But the other piece of that deck was running ability, and Imperial Enforcement. And so then you just retrieve Emperors on every battle. You retrieve an extra Imperial when you won the battle. You retrieve an ISB. So you just got a lot of incidental retrieval out of this deck, in addition to all of the drain bonuses and reductions and stuff that ISB normally does.
Right. Yeah. I mean, match play is a different animal. I know Joel Olsen talked about a little bit about that when he was streaming this weekend. Like it's a different skill set, and it requires different deck building choices.
Yeah. But I think on top 100%. Of it too, match play is even a slightly different animal than the differential pod play that we did.
Yeah.
Well, I agree.
100%.
Because you have the added of, okay, so what is my opponent going to play? What do I want to play?
Yeah.
Do I want to like engage in some reverse psychology? Like, is someone going to think, no way, Matt Lutz is going to play Hyperdrive. I'm going to play Watto. Oh God, he put up Hyperdrive. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, also the wrinkle of, you can advance by going 1-1 in your match.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. No.
But like in our pod plays, like, well, you have to care about differential in your individual games, but you should still just actually try to win and try to go 4-0 in all of them. But in match play, it's potentially correct to just not even to play to not lose game 2.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree.
Okay, so our next question. Legend will be the deck that wins the event.
Okay, because this is match play, does that mean this is the deck that the winning player plays for light side?
I think it's a hit.
Well, I guess Matt, are you gonna play Legend? Because that'll be the decision then.
There's a card for that. It's called let's keep a little optimism here.
You know what? I'm going to say this. Like, looking at the bracket, when you have Baroni, Desai, Bastion, who have played it and played it really well, Shaw has played it really well. So, in turn, if Shaw plays it, you know that I'm going to guess that most of the other members of the new allies have a good understanding of it because they have practice with it and everything. So, there's a reason why people are saying Legend is one of the best objectives that the PC has made. Period. It does a lot.
And Dan, I agree with you. I really like Legend. And I think it's one of those decks where it is not obvious like what the deck should look like. There's a whole pile of versions out there, including with like what effects are you going to start with your starting interrupts. It's also a deck that I think has an extremely high skill ceiling, especially with the tracking component and the ability to look at your cards.
Yeah.
I had a game versus Ryan Surson a month ago. I think it was in July, an OCS game, where normally you see EPP Ray in Legend. He was running regular, version set 4 Ray. And so what he was doing every turn, late game, was in his activate phase, activating 1, doing his peak with Legend, figuring out which of those 2 cards he wanted with Ray,
activating
putting that card on the force pile.
I like that.
Drawing it, and then activating the balance of whatever he was going to activate.
I like that idea.
That was extremely neat. It was extremely that's a really nice way to, use/abuse the Legend objective text. And so I agree with you. I think it's a great objective. It is not easy to figure it out.
Yeah.
There's enough variance in there where you're not going to see the same, Throne Room Mains deck list that's, 55 cards identical to the next guy's. And like I said, it's got an extremely high skill ceiling. So I'm going to think it's a hit on that question.
Yeah. And I agree. I think it's a hit. I like Legend. I haven't figured it out myself. I would love to play it. I haven't seen a build that people have been playing. So I think it's just a deck where you can look at people's lists online, but you can clearly tailor it to how you want to play it. So there's a lot of openness to it. Except for you're not playing Luke. You're not. The only problem is you're not playing Luke. So Chris Kelly will never play it.
I mean, I think I'll take it's a hit also. Mostly because as we were talking about the skill floor in this portion of the event is so high that I think, like, if you're talking about what deck do I think would qualify somebody for the OCS this month, there I would probably take No Idea over Legend.
Yeah.
But that I think mostly because I think the average No Idea player is better than the average Legend player. But I think
good. Agreed.
But I think in this tournament, the skill level of the players who'd be piloting Legends is high enough that they can get the most out of that deck. I would put Legend at the top.
I agree.
Good question.
And I think for our last question of the night, Steve Baroni will three-peat as your Texas Mini World Champion. Gonna start with Matt because he's in it.
Miss, because there are 15 other players in here, and as the lawyer, as the eternal pessimist, I'm not putting my money on anyone.
Yeah,
Justin?
I mean, I think you got to bet the field against any single person. Although, I mean, Steve has certainly taken me apart every time that I played him. So, yeah, I mean, I think I would still say it's a miss, but I think again, just harping on the same thing, just like everyone in the
That's
tournament
fair.
is so good. Like,
Steve, to hit, you're gonna win.
are you in his bracket? 'Cause
Yeah,
that's not fair.
I am.
Okay.
So if I
That's
get
very
if
fair.
I get past Bill, I have to play either Joe Olson or Steve.
I mean, you got a hard couple of rounds there.
So,
Yeah. Yep.
but I have faith in Steve. I think he's gonna win. I think it's gonna be a all KTOD finals. So I'm just saying.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, so that's all we got for Swing and a Miss this week. So let's go into our card of the week at this point. We're going to start with our co-host, Mr. Matt CRG. So
All right.
you alluded to this earlier that it was a Karuli card. So you want to
Yeah.
go over it?
So my card of the week, I don't have Twitch open, but it is a Feed Palistroid SSA-306.
I was gonna say, I think I have to open Twitch because I don't know what this card is.
Yeah, and it says at same site, opponents' spies and smugglers are deployed +4.
Yeah.
They may not apply their ability toward drawing Battle Destiny. And I picked this card of the week because Matt Crewley played this in his CCG deck versus me, where I played no idea, and I had never read this card before. I had never seen it, and I was thinking, oh my god, what the hell am I gonna do with this now? And this is me sitting in my basement on game 3, just clapping, good job, Crewley.
You know what's
Thank you for no idea.
the only problem I have with this card is it's a battle droid, so it can be battled.
Yes. But he put it down with EPP Aura
Yeah.
and Dengar and Proxima, and he had P59 in an adjacent site. He's fine. He's fine. The only thing he ran into is keep your eyes open virtual twice versus me. So
That's true.
kind of had a rough go there. But I was it was one of those all right, thank you, sir. May I have another. I appreciate you having this card in your deck. Good job.
Yeah, that's a
That's
good
my
one.
card of the week.
I've seen the smuggler battle trip. I don't think I've actually seen that one. So
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some. If you look at some of the battle droids, there's a lot of interesting ones. So, Justin, you also gave us a card of the week. We're going to talk about yours now.
my card is Leia of Alderaan Virtual. I for the life of me can't remember what virtual set it's from, but it is the effect that deploys on Leia or someone else if you've made a mistake. Prevents reduction or cancellation, if I remember correctly, of force trains at that location, and more importantly, it gives Leia the text to cancel the ability of a leader of ability less than 4, if I remember that right.
Yes.
So one of the things that came up when we were looking at various deck lists and stuff was that TRM has been leaning really heavily on Leia V, which I love because I love Leia V. And a big part of that was because of the text that allows her to cancel leader game text, because it's so good against ISB. Canceling Tarkin canceling Tarkin is a big way that you prevent them from locking up a site. But since I was going to play Legend, we can't really play Leia V. And then, as I came across Leia of Alderaan again, I realized it was kind of the perfect tack card against ISB. Because if you if you set Leia up at a site and they choose to ignore you, they can't reduce your battle. They can't reduce your drains. You'll get to do your drain of 2 or 3 or whatever it ends up being. And if they come up against you, which is what happened in my round 1, he came down with Tarkin and a bunch of dudes in a walker, and then Leia came down with Leia of Alderaan and some other stuff and canceled Tarkin's text, and suddenly he's looking at actually having to eat loss at every one of these battles that he thought were locked up, that he thought was secure, and that I couldn't attack him. Because he did have the answer to the Leia's gun in hand, but wasn't running an answer to Leia of Alderaan. So
right. Good meta call, Justin.
Yeah.
And on top of which it's pullable by walkling. So
yeah, and
like,
anything that's pullable by walkling
is
good.
Yeah. Very easily findable tech card. I've mostly run it with Princess Leia, but I actually just like it floating now. So
there you go. Yeah, and I've said this other times. I think Leia is the hardest, like especially for light side mains.
Yeah.
It's the hardest character persona to pick which 1 or 2 slots you dedicate to your deck for her, because almost every playable Leia persona is good.
It's almost kind of a cheat way out for playing either Legend or Old Allies. Is that, well, why wouldn't I run General Leia in these resistance-based decks? Like, okay, that makes it a little easier because you don't really have to make as much of a decision. But occasionally it might be right to actually run like Leia Rebel Princess or something, even in Legend. I haven't seen that, but I could see it being. It's certainly possible. So.
Right.
So, moving on, let's talk about the deck building challenge for this week. So, Bastion has actually completed the last 3. So, that being said, I'm going to make the point now. Bastion, unfortunately, you're banned from it. You can complete them, but you're not going to win a prize for the next month.
It's okay. I think he likes the challenge.
He loves the challenge. Like, he said it.
Oh,
I love Bastion completing these, but unfortunately, I'm going to let somebody else have the prize. This one's going to be fun. Ryan Saracen, you're unbanned, by the way. You can complete challenges, by the way, to get prizes, because we're going to have some more prizes coming up. So right now, we still have the Holotheatre with Jerry as Vader and everything. That's going to be the main prize, but I'm going to create some more as soon as I get some different paper and stuff. So look out for those. But this week's challenge is going to be interesting. You don't have to win. That's the first thing. But all you have to do is convert Vader with Anakin Skywalker.
The interrupt
from Death Star 2.
I mean, converting him with the character would be way harder.
Yeah. So that's all you got to do. Convert Vader with Anakin Skywalker, the interrupt. Nothing else.
There you go.
All right.
You don't have to win. You can lose. You can lose by 30. I don't care. You just have to. You have to convert Vader.
I look forward to everyone playing Hitco for the next week.
Yep. And to make this even more interesting, the first person who does it, and whoever does it, if they do it against Chris Kelly, they're going to get another prize.
There you go.
Chris Kelly, if you
what happens
do
if Chris does it?
If Chris does it, you'll get the second prize. But if somebody does it against Chris, you get the second prize as well.
There you go.
You know, you can play you can convert Vader with the Anakin Skywalker interrupted Tig. Like, that's a thing. Because you play I feel the conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean, I kind of feel like you should probably just win the game if you're going to do that with Tig, but
there you go.
Like I said, but it has to be in an open format or OCS game. That's the only other stipulation.
Good challenge.
So you can thank Matt Carulli for coming up with this one. Believe me, we were coming up with like some interesting ones. We got some more coming up. So we're actually going to have some different challenges too, where you don't have to like win a game. It's going to be some more interesting ones. Oh, no. Okay, if you want to try and split the prize, Chris Kelly, I will gladly split the prize with you and whoever beats you.
Yeah, and coming back, looking at the interrupt, I don't think you can do this in TIG.
No,
because it says if Luke is about to be lost from table, and Vader is present, which should never happen. Luke should never be lost while Vader is present.
I I can envision ways where it could happen, but you're right.
The next question is Anakin Skywalker coded in GEP? We should actually check that.
Yes. No, it is. It absolutely is.
Okay,
Definitely is.
okay, that's good. That's good. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's there.
I can't guarantee it works, but I played it in Hitcode.
It does
for a while.
work. I have seen it convert Vader.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Every once in a while in Game Chat, you'll see like someone say, "Son of Vader," or Anakin Skywalker in the house. And it's like, oh, you just converted Vader with doing something.
Okay.
Good job.
So again, all you got to do is convert Vader. First person to do it. Just submit me the link. I'm going to post this on the forums. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'll post the thing on the forums, what the challenge is. When you post your links from now on to the challenge, say who your opponent is as well, so they can confirm it. So,
Agreed.
No cheatoring.
All right.
Okay, on to my favorite part of the show before we wrap things up tonight. I think it's going to be Justin as our guest star. Justin, you don't have Twitch open, do you?
Well, I did.
Please close it.
All right. Yep.
We're not going to do a spelling challenge. We're going to do the lore challenge. So you can thank Jerry for this.
I mean,
okay.
Jerry and I played this on our road trip to the Nebraska States tournament last year. So we'll see.
Bothaway. There you go.
Bothaway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're ready to do this. So.
No.
Okay.
So this is the say the lore, guess the text.
So I'm going to tell you what the card. Okay. So I'm going to tell you the card type and the side. Okay.
Okay.
And then I'm going to give you the lore, and then you got to give me what the card is.
Right. I'm going to say first, I'm super disadvantaged at this because I have only basically ever bought cards specifically to use them in, like, modern tournaments. So.
Well, I mean, I'm going to say this. This is actually, like, I'm giving you a decent one. Are you ready?
Is it a virtual card? the lore's
No.
just a scavenger.
So that's the other
Just
stipulation.
scavenger.
With this challenge, I'm not going to be doing any virtual cards because a lot of our characters or a lot of our stuff only has, like, the same lore. So...
Right.
But it's a dark side effect.
Okay.
Okay. With this challenge, okay, are you ready?
As I'm gonna be.
Huge creature that is feline in nature and moves on its hind legs. Slow movement makes it difficult for the monster to feed, but whenever a confrontation arises, it always wins.
It's a dark side effect.
It's a dark side effect.
Ngok Warbeast.
No.
I guess. Okay.
No, that is the underlying card to Proxima.
Oh, that
No.
card is an effect.
No, you're both wrong. I will read it one more time, and I'll give you guys I'll give you another chance, Justin. Matt, you know what?
Okay.
I'm going to give you this chance too.
Sure.
Okay. Huge creature that is feline in nature and moves on its hind legs. Slow movement makes it difficult for the monster to feed, but whenever a confrontation arises, it always wins.
I would guess something from Jabba's palace, but I have no idea.
Justin.
I mean, Ngok Warbeast is clearly wrong because those would say Dejarik in the lore.
Yeah.
Correct.
So...
I like this more than the spelling challenge. I really
agree.
do.
This is better than the spelling challenge because it doesn't rely on you pronouncing the card name correctly.
Agreed.
In my defense, I've had two people successfully complete the spelling challenge.
Okay.
As your attorney, that's not a good defense.
Yeah.
I don't.
All right. Yeah.
I can't afford you as my attorney. Casey's my attorney.
That's true.
I
got nothing.
You got nothing, Justin?
I don't have a guess. I don't even know what cards to guess, as I said. So yeah, I don't know.
It's the
You got
Sando Aqua Monster
There you go.
from Reflections 3.
Okay.
I was even wrong on the site too.
I think I've put that card into. No, I don't think I have. All right.
We might bring
Certainly
back
don't
the
own
spelling
that.
challenge here and there, but we're gonna stick with this one for a little while because this is fun too.
I like it.
I think this gives you more range.
Agreed.
Okay, everyone.
Good.
So I think that's going to call it a night. I want to thank Matt for being my co-host tonight, Justin for coming on.
Thanks,
I want to
Justin.
thank everybody who.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone who came on and who actually watched. So next week we'll have on Chris Kelly as the co-host. We're going to have somebody from the Texas Mini Worlds on as well. Again, stay tuned to the PC channel, watching every Monday for Chris Goblin's OCS review. This is the last month of the OCS, so it's going to be close. Let's see who wins this last one. And again, stay tuned. I'm going to be putting out some more information regarding Dan Plays. It's going to be coming back very soon. I want to get like a little bit of an outline and get some guests on for that one. So again, stay tuned for that. And I think that's all we got for tonight. So take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Well,